Good morning, everybody. This is our Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, and this is our first session for the FY22 operating budget. We today are going to follow the approach that was set forth by the Council President. We do have two groupings of recommendations. The first set we will discuss in detail, and the second set is considered consent items, but I will ask our staff to read the recommendation, and then staff will pause so that council members may have an opportunity to either consent or ask questions. If for some reason there are particular questions or issues that cannot be resolved right away, then we will reschedule that item for another work session. And this is because, of course, we're virtual and we have, limitations for how we stream our work. Therefore, sessions are a bit truncated, but we are still, of course, having to deliberate and be very methodical about what we do. Let me also say that this is the first budget where racial equity and social justice, that lens is being applied, and there's still a little bit more work to do. I think that by next year's budget, there would be a much more standard process, but I appreciate everybody's effort to begin to look at the budget in that way and to explain both to the decision makers, but also to our residents, how these decisions either help us eliminate, or if they might exacerbate the disparities that we're all grappling with. So with that, we're gonna start our day with debt service and a debt of gratitude to all our central office staff and the administration for working so hard to get all of these packets going, and really always an extraordinary job. Let me say that with this particular item, we have pointed this out time and time again, that our debt service is a particular item that we are very concerned about and continue to work to address. And I think you've seen in our 6-year fiscal plan with this year's budget that we are making clear progress. And so I do want to thank the members of the GO committee and staff for being very blunt about what we have to do, and making decisions that sometimes are not easy when we put forth our spending affordability guidelines, et cetera, and we balance all of the needs with affordability. It's a tough thing to do, but we recognize that this is a really critical component. Debt service obviously really does affect the dollars that are available for our operating budget. And so it's something that obviously it is constantly a trade-off, but I do want to commend this committee and also finance and OMB and our staff for really beginning to all work together, and now we can see a bit of progress going forward. Believe for this item, Mr. Covey, who is the head of the Department of Finance, Ms. Jacqueline Carter from Finance, and Nancy Feldman for Finance I believe, are also present. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Gene Smith.
Thank you, Ms. Navarro, and good morning to the GO committee. And I also am appreciative of all of the work that Finance and OMB did with council staff to prepare this report. And as you noted, there is a note about the racial equity and social justice considerations. And executive staff did note a lot of the debt service budget is related to the capital budget and the CIP that the council approves, and therefore much of the racial equity and social justice considerations are built into the CIP projects that the committees and the council ultimately reviews and approves. And the staff did note that the executive and OMB created equity emphasis areas for the CIP this year and has begun that work. But as we get into the debt service budget, as staff notes, much of the debt service budget is based on decisions that the council's made for the last 20 years, because this is ongoing payments for the debt that we've issued. And so with that, I'll go ahead and just hit some highlights. Debt service is one of the larger budgets in the county. It's about 8.2% of the tax-supported expenditures for fiscal 22. And there are three things that staff notes that are kind of important about the debt service budget. One, this has been past decisions. So the fiscal 22 budget represents 20 years worth of decisions that the county will continue to pay. Fortunately, the council, as Ms. Navarro noted, has approved spending affordability guidelines that have begun lowering the general obligation debt, and the fiscal plan reflects the current guidelines that the council has approved. The council will revisit those in September of this year, and we'll approve them for the next fiscal or next six-year CIP. And finally, as always, we just want to note the AAA bond ratings that the county has enjoyed for many years. And that by maintaining that AAA bond ratings, both with executive and council's work, and many executives and council's works has ensured that we've had the lowest debt cost that we could in order to complete projects and to get lower debt ratings. So most of the debt service budget is related to the general obligation bonds, more than 87% in this budget. And then there's also three other areas that are included in this budget, which is the long-term leases, the short-term leases, and other long-term debt. There was a little bit of the executive has made some, I should say, finance has made some decisions to do certificates of participation instead of master leases, and so that's why some of the debt has changed between short-term leases and other long-term debt. But staff does ultimately note that over the next 6 years, based on our estimates, I should say finance estimates, we will see lower debt service expenditures as a whole in all three categories, with only a minor uptick in the GO bond debt service as we continue to pay off as we continue to issue slightly more debt than we had been issuing 10, 15 years ago. But again, all of the debt indicators are showing improvement, and council staff continues to encourage kind of staying the course as we see the next 6 years through. With that, given the bulk of the work that needs to get done today, I'll pause and see if any committee members have any questions or if finance has anything they wish to add.
Colleagues, any questions? I don't see any. No. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you. If I could figure out how to get off of mute, I would. I just wanted to thank the committee and especially our staff and everyone else. You know, the debt has been a great concern in Montgomery counties for years. And you know, in the very beginning, I kept saying if debt were a department, it would be the third largest department that we have. And it literally, I mean, it literally scared me, and I know it scared others as well. And we knew that we couldn't stop debt. We knew that we couldn't turn it around in 20 minutes, but we have a plan, we have a system, and we're heading in the right direction. And that's not always easy, especially, I'm preaching to the choir here, especially during these difficult times that we went through last year and continuing on now. But I really do applaud everybody for working in the same direction, because if it didn't, this could engulf us. And at this point, I think we are heading in the right direction and doing the right thing. So I thank you. And it started with you, Chairman Navarro. Without your help and Councilmember Friedsen's as well, but without your help, it wouldn't have started. And now it is. So anyhow, and I do want to thank Gene and everybody else in staff, because without their help, we would have had difficulties. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Katz. Councilmember Friedsen.
Well, now that we're discussing it, I figured I'd jump into. First of all, echo the comments that everybody has made. Appreciate everybody's work on this. This is one area where we have really been disciplined and really over the course of a long period of time move this number in a positive direction from a fiscal standpoint, and everybody deserves credit. That work started well before I got to the council, led by our chair and this committee, and working with the executive branch, particularly finance. And so I think everybody deserves credit for that. And it's a cruise ship. It takes a long time to change debt trajectory because it's a 20-year horizon. We're paying now for decisions that were made long ago. And so it certainly takes a while to do that. I will just note one thing. We have to be careful as we go through this budget to keep that progress going, and things like PAYGO and other fiscal policy decisions. We need to be cautious and be careful and not to lose the positive momentum that we've made to move in a much more fiscally responsible direction. That has been the work of the last decade and more, and we don't want to lose it because of this challenging moment that we're in, the influx of federal dollars that we've received. So I just wanted to put that out there. I really do appreciate everybody's work and leadership and focus on this. It's not easy. It takes a lot of effort, but I do think that we have some tough decisions and tough conversations that we need to have before we approve this final budget to keep that progress going and to build on the work that so many have worked so hard to get to at this point. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Feetson. Mr. Covey, would you like to make any comments?
Good morning. Thank you. I just agree with you. I mean, we're on the right trajectory now. We have an excellent debt crew run by Jackie Carter and Nancy Feldman, and in cahoots, if you will, with OMB and County Council. I think we're trending downward in all the best ways, reduced debt, and our metrics are coming in line with where they are supposed to be. So I think, again, we are in a better place than we were a few years ago. And as Mr. Feetson said, we intend to continue in that direction.
All right, so back to you, Mr. Smith. You have the recommendation, and I believe there's some possible amendments. Is that right?
Yes, there are. So that was kind of the front-loaded, just basic and background conversation. The executive did, after this report was submitted, send over budget amendments, which included some amendments related to the debt service budget. So council staff will walk through those real quick. Neither of the amendments affect the top line appropriation number that was recommended in the budget. The first one is a funding switch between non-tax supported and tax supported. $212,000 needs to be switched from non-tax supported to tax supported in the expenditure schedule because there was an assumption that the Wheaton building would be leasing retail space. Obviously, with the pandemic and everything else going on, that has not happened, and so we need to support the debt service expenditures for that through the general fund tax supported expenditures. And council staff does recommend approval of that funding switch, and again notes that it does not change the total appropriation. It's just where the funding is coming from.
Okay, any objection to that? Okay.
So, and then the second one is related to the American Rescue Plan funding. As noted in previous packets and overviews, the county is going to receive approximately $204 million through that funding source in two tranches. The executive in his recommended budget programmed some of it for fiscal 22 and had some unallocated, I should rephrase that, had some assumed in fiscal 21 and also programmed some in fiscal 22. And there's an unallocated amount that the council will be working through. In the budget amendment sent over last week, the executive has recommended using $1.4 million from the American Rescue Plan to fund the lines of credit expenditures that were originally going to be supported by general fund expenditures in fiscal 22. As staff knows, a lot of that is dealing with the total budget amendment package that the executive sent over. There were some other general fund expenditures that could only be supported through the general fund in his amendments, and the $1.4 million use of ARPA here, which is an appropriate use of ARPA. It's a one-time expenditure. We're only going to do it in fiscal 22. We're not going to, at least currently, estimate to continue making those expenditures in 23. Obviously, we did the lines of credit, or the county issued lines of credit due to the pandemic. But ultimately, it's about balancing the executive's amendments to have the least impact to the general fund. Given council staff's approach to the ARPA funding, we are reviewing it, and ultimately here, this feels like it fits the ARPA funding use. But as noted in the packet, this will reduce the unallocated amount by $1.4 million that was originally assumed when the executive sent the budget over. Thank you.
Councilmember Feetson.
Yeah, thanks. It's a specific question on this. It's kind of a broader question on some of the budget amendments. But is there I mean, I totally agree, first of all, that this is an absolutely appropriate use of ARPA funding. It's an emergency expense that was only incurred due to the unprecedented moment we were in. This is literally what ARPA funding is for, why we're really appreciative of our federal partners for allowing us to be able to keep up with services and do the responsible things that we need to do in order to maintain our fiscal health. So I agree with that decision wholeheartedly. The question that I have is, how come that wasn't included in the original submission? There are a number of changes that seem pretty significant, and ultimately result in either less ARPA funding than what was indicated, or cuts that are going to be needed to be made to the general fund, because there are some of the other decisions reduce general fund expenditures. I was just curious, what happened here? Was there a process that just this was too late, or is there a particular reasoning for why there's needed to be a change here?
Right. The main answer is that the guidance that we've been getting from U.S. Treasury is still coming, and we didn't have any real guidance before the budget was put together. So we weren't sure whether this was going to be an approved or a possible source for this at all. So it's really just a timing thing, primarily.
Okay, I appreciate that. I will say lots of decisions were made about ARPA funding to the tune of $121 million. So it perhaps for your department, that was the position that was taken, but doesn't seem like that was the approach by all of county government. So it is a bit odd to me that we seem to have a bit of a hodgepodge approach to this funding. Some things were thrown in there as ARPA funding. The budget, partially was balanced off of that, and some things we held off. I think I will just note, not surprisingly, that finance took, I believe, the prudent approach to hold off until we had clarity of how the funding could be used, and then making a decision collaboratively between the executive branch and the council of, what is an appropriate use and how we're going to use these funds. That wasn't the broader approach, and so I just wanted to get that understanding, because it has been different across agencies and for the broader executive recommended budget that was sent over. But I do agree that this is the appropriate use of these funds and have no issue with it. And I think it was the prudent decision that was made at the appropriate time, and wanted to note that finance was really ahead of where we were then, and appreciate that as well.
Thank you for those comments. I agree. It is important to have, a consistent sort of framework with regards to these funds. And it is true that we've been asking questions from the start in terms of why certain things had been assumed and baked into the budget. And like you said, Councilmember Friedson, I think in this particular instance, this is exactly the approach that needs to be embraced, because it is wonderful that we're getting the ARPA money, but also we need to be mindful of the fact that it is one time. And I also would concur that in this instance, this makes a lot of sense. Councilmember Katz is nodding, right? So I think without objection, we will adopt this recommendation. Okay.
Very good. Well, then the final recommendation stands before the committee, which is the executive's recommendation for the appropriation for the fiscal 22 debt service budget, which is $448,687,490 million. As already noted, $212,000 will be switched between non-tax supported and tax supported, and the budget will also ultimately reflect that $1.4 million will be in grant funding or revenue funding for the purposes of offsetting the expenditures for line items of credit. Council staff recommends approval based on the committee's comments already.
Yep. Thank you. All right, item number 2.
Very good. We're on to the leases NDA. I'm also joined by Mr. Oslant and OMB. The leases NDA is a budget the council approves every year that includes all of the leases that the county holds. Council staff provides a full list of the fiscal 22 leases on circles 2 through 3 for those that are interested in the committee or watching at home or just wants to review it later. We'll just go ahead and jump in. Most of this is normal and perfunctory, but there is one major change. So clearly the county and Park and Planning have moved into the Wheaton office building. Some of the county's offices have also moved from 255 Rockville Pike to the gray courthouse in Rockville, because that space is complete in the county, as we just went through the debt service budget, is paying for debt service or long-term debt and for those facilities, but we no longer need the leases. Normally, and as always, the county executive must make recommendations based on the leases that are before him, and so this includes recommendations of $8,244,517 for the 255 Rockville Pike lease that is no longer needed. Council staff has worked with executive staff on this, and ultimately the recommendation is to reduce the leases NDA budget by that recommended amount. And council staff also notes that, as always, the council's budget resolution will include language to say that the leases NDA budget will appropriate money, but not for the purposes of the 255 Rockville Pike lease. And so those will be resources that will be added to the council's reconciliation side.
All right. Any remarks or comments from Mr. Dice, Mr. Assant, Mr. Nelson? No.
No, pretty
Any
straightforward.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Council members, any comment? Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, appreciate. I just had a quick kind of process-based question. Since this is a slightly different approach from what we've done before, and I'm relatively new here, I've only had one normal budget cycle. On this council, I would just note that. So I'm still learning. I'm still learning. But we have, I mean, this, for instance, $18.87 million will be added to the reconciliations as we found, we're reducing that amount. We have the category 3, process that we're taking. The other budget amendments that are on the negative side of this, the $5 million for the working families income supplement, for instance, some of the other changes that we just discussed, are we treating those in the same category? Are those effectively being added to category 3? How is that process working, or have we not decided on that yet? And if there's a more appropriate time for me to ask that question, I will hold off.
That's a great question. That's a great question.
It seems related to this item. I just am curious of how this, I'm afraid I don't want to double count effectively. We're saying we're adding this, and we're going to subtract from it things that the council is moving, like the DD supplement, for instance, that HHS approved. There's some significant changes. But the county executive has also sent over a number of corrections to his own budget that cost a lot of money, including $5 million for the working families income supplement. So, Mr. Howard.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mr. Friedson, and a great point. Any reductions that the committee and the full council makes will be part of resources available to potentially fund category 3, priority expenses that the council identifies, and or to address some of the fiscal policy issues with reserves or PAYGO. When the executive sent over the recommended amendments to his budget, that's something else that we're going to have to put into the mix, so to speak, because those weren't anticipated before when we created our process and begin looking at the budget. So as the committees work through the different amendments that the executive sends over, we'll need to kind of put together a summary of how that impacts the bottom line on the overall budget, and how it would impact the committees and council's decisions on the items placed in the different categories.
Appreciate it. So the 8.2 million here gets added to the positive from to reach that total of 18.87. Okay. I would just note,
and the GO committee gets to determine how that $8 million is going to be used, because it was another committee.
Right, exactly.
Right. Okay.
I support that too.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I would just know. I just want to make sure the county executive's recommended budget is the base budget. Any amendments that we take up and any changes that we suggest through the committee work should be treated the same, and we should have to reconcile at the end. I just want to make sure that the recommendations that get sent over from the county executive, that they not be put into a new recommended budget, if that makes sense. And then we start with things like the DD supplement and others from there. So I will just note that here in public. I think that is the intention. It is now our budget, the council's budget, that we have to approve. And while we appreciate the executive's amendments that he has sent over after he was legally obligated to send over the budget, that they be taken up as suggestions.
Well, and that is correct. I mean, and that's how we've done it in the past. So you're absolutely right. It's not as if, okay, that gets put in automatically and then we have to grapple with everything else. It's all now part of this process of reconciliation. And hopefully, unless there's a specific type of dedicated funding or something that is attached to it, right? So, so we'll have to grapple with all of that.
Great. Okay. I just want to clarify for myself and also for others who are watching and seeing the puts and takes in real time, and understanding how it's all going to work. So appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Right. So we do have a council staff recommendation of an amended appropriation of $8. Do you have your hand up?
I apologize. I was letting y'all finish. There was one more. OMB did find another, and should say DGS together found another small, very antenna lease that does not need to continue. That did not make it in the staff packet. That would be a total of $17,712, rounding to the nearest dollar. It's for the Bethesda Metro State Center DTS antenna. And so that amount would also be reduced from this budget. And so that would be the final amount. And I'll just quickly note, per the previous conversation, as the GEO committee has done a lot of the heavy lifting, you've added more resources by using, or at least recommending, the use of ARPA funding for the debt service budget. And so that is also part of the wash that's going on here.
There we go. GEO committee coming through. All right. So, so with that, is there any objection to the council staff recommendation as amended? No objection, so we will accept that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. All right, next item. Working Families Income Supplement.
Yep. So I'm also again joined by our colleagues in finance and Office of Management and Budget. The Working Families Income Supplement is a program that the county has had running for a very long time. It provides additional refunds to residents in the county based on the earned income tax credit that the federal government runs. The state provides a refund if there's no tax liability for residents in the state. And the county matches that for county taxpayers at 100%. So what ultimately this program does is double the benefit to working families in the county, with 50% of it coming from the state and 50% of it coming from the county. The executive has recommended, in the original recommended budget, a $20 million increase to this program, and then also, as noted recently, the budget amendments that came over on last week also added $5 million. So the ultimate recommendation from the executive is to increase this by $25 million for fiscal 22. The reasons for the increase is due to the state's response to the pandemic. The Relief Act increased the amount that is eligible for a refund from 27% to 45%. And that's for 3 tax years, 2020, 2021, and 2022. In addition, excuse me, there was a state bill that was passed that allowed those that file under the individual tax identification number to also receive this benefit. And also, as noted in the staff report, Ms. Navarro and her colleagues have been also introduced a bill to allow those with individual tax ID numbers to also receive that benefit through the county. And that bill will go through a separate process than the budget process right now. In the end, the executive has recommended, based on the analysis, the executive has recommended close to $15 million for the purposes of the Relief Act, and based on the updated amendments, $10 million for the individual tax ID numbers. The executive has also recommended using ARPA funding, or American Rescue Plan funding, for the increase, given that this was a pandemic response initiative and one that was created by the state. And council staff does concur with that, although council staff notes that because this is a 3 tax year issue, these payments will continue at the current level for 3 tax years. And so the ARPA funding is in for 22. And should there be any left over when fiscal 22 ends, that would be a possible way to fill the expenditures in fiscal 23. But if not, in fiscal 23 and I believe fiscal 24, the county will have additional expenditures through the general fund that they will need to support for this program based on the estimate. As noted in the executive's memo July will be when we know about 90% of these expenditures, and so we'll be able to get an update. The county will to know kind of where we're going to end up with the new expenditures, but council staff does recommend support of both the original budget and the amendments and the use of ARPA for this expenditure.
Councilmember Friedson.
Well, first off, thank you to colleagues for leadership on this. I worked a lot on the earned income tax credit, as it's known at the state level, when I was in the comptroller's office. This is one of the single most important tools for working families to be able to live and afford to be in a high cost state like Maryland and provide for their families, particularly at this time. The doubling down of it, literally and figuratively, will have, I think, one of the biggest impacts on families in Montgomery County and across the state. The fact that the county doubles it, already, and that we're ramping that up to meet what the state is doing is dramatic and significant. And the fact that we aren't leaving anybody behind, I think, is very reflective of who we are and what kind of county we are. And so I just wanted to thank the chair, thank colleagues. I know Councilmember Katz, Councilmember Albornoz, and others. Council President Hucker has been working on this issue. It's been a group effort, and as it should be, because this is such an important issue. I did have a technical question, related, Mr. Smith, to what you were just describing. It would be helpful. It's ARPA funding, so we have some more time with understanding this, but it would be helpful, and I would like to understand when the county has to pay the state. I probably should know this for my whole job, but I don't. What the timing of paying the state, because my understanding is ARPA funding, and we're still learning about how this process is going to work, but the second tranche of ARPA funding is going to come April or May, early May of next year, about this time next year. And it needs to be spent, at least my understanding as of now, in the early months of FY23. And so depending on when the disbursement is required of the county to the state may impact, whether or not ARPA could be used for 22 and 23. 22 is without question could be used, but the question would be 23. So just wanted to get that sense. Do we know offhand, Mr. Covey, when
Yes.
the timing is?
Yes. Normally, Mr. Friedson, we get a bill in the second or third week of July from the state controller's office, and the bill is due at the end of July. That's 90% or more of the amount that will be due from the county to the state to pay for the program for fiscal year 22. Now, given that the state has pushed the April 15th filing deadline to July 15th, like it did last year, we'll probably get that bill a little bit later this year, but I would expect that it would come in on the normal schedule in 2022. So I don't think this is going to be an issue at all for FY23. FY23. There are a couple of reconciling payments that are made throughout the year, both from the county and to the state, actually, and from the state. But the vast majority of the money will be sent to the state on or before July 30th, or maybe this year sometime in August. They'll probably give us a little bit more time if they give us a late invoice.
Appreciate that. I'll just note that the county executive's already committed about 60% of the ARPA funds that we're working our way through now. We do have to determine how to use the balance of that. And there is a possibility, it sounds to me, based on the timing of when those funds have to be spent, that ARPA funding may be available for FY23 in addition to FY22. So I note that because it's a major fiscal consequence. It's a big number in terms of a financial commitment. And so perhaps as we look at that, if we could just add that to the consideration to think through, that would take pressure off of the general fund and also potentially resolve the issue of it being a multi-year, commitment, which is not what we have generally intended ARPA funds to be used for. I think there's an option here that we can address both issues, not today, but as we move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedson. I will only add that, as it has been said, this is such an impactful approach. This program absolutely is one that has been proven through data to have significant impact on people who are, struggling financially. And I have been very concerned about sort of the post-COVID recovery, if you will, in terms of what the actual impact probably is that we haven't even fully appreciated yet. And perhaps we don't have a way to measure it yet, but I think it will be significant. And so when I look at the different pieces of our budget and the different ways that we can hopefully mitigate what has been exacerbated through this pandemic, I believe that this is a very important investment because it will, I think, in the long run, not only help a lot of families, obviously, but I think it will help us also fiscally, because there's no doubt that we are going to have to step up and help families who maybe were very vulnerable before the pandemic and now are worse off. There are many families who were doing fine and with the pandemic have been hit very, very hard. And so I believe that there are these kinds of opportunities that we must absolutely take advantage of. And also it would be, I think, important to figure out ways to get a sense of how this, approach actually has assisted, right? So that we can best make decisions on all these other kinds of programs that we have out there. The idea of being able to extend this to people who have an individual taxpayer identification number is so important for Montgomery County. And again, I think it will save the county money in the long run while really helping so many families. So it's kind of I think it's a win-win for sure. Okay, Councilmember Katz.
Thank you. I just want to say that both have said it extremely well. I am absolutely in agreement with this. Candidly, it probably should have happened a little faster than it did, but we should be pleased that at least it is starting now. And those who are deserve these types of credits. And I'm very, very glad that the state is basically agreeing with this. So I'm certainly supportive of this.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Smith.
Sure. Also, just real quick, a point maybe that Mr. Friedson was bringing up. The county council president has given 3 categories for adds to the fiscal 22 budget, but the first category is for use of ARPA. And so I don't know if Mr. Friedson was suggesting this or not, so maybe I'm looking for clarity. Is one use of ARPA could be saying for fiscal 23, we'd like to put a peg of $25 million in for working families income supplement, just so that the GEO committee notes that this is an item that has a fiscal impact beyond 22, but that would still be eligible for ARPA. So was that something you were suggesting, Mr. Friedson, or something?
I wasn't suggesting that. I was suggesting that we deal with it at a later date, but I think that is a very good suggestion and would allow us to formalize the suggestion that we take it up at a later date. And so if there was interest from colleagues, I'd be very interested in that. And I appreciate the suggestion to operationalize what I was mentioning.
I think that would be great. I see Councilmember Katz nodding as well.
Yes, absolutely. Good suggestion. So should we give the suggestion to Gene or should we give it to you, Andrew? No, Gene is shaking his head no. So, okay, so Andrew gets
it's all Mr. Smith. I'm just here for the ride, but I appreciate it.
Thanks.
That's why we make sure we have smarter people than me around to come up with ways to actually accomplish what we're trying to do and talking about.
So with that, then the recommendation would be to add obviously $25 million to category 1 for fiscal 23. That'll be clearly stated. And then the council will work through its priorities for ARPA funding as it will following the budget in 22. But then there's the recommendation for the $45 million and some change in the working family income supplement for fiscal 22, with $25 million of that being supported by ARPA.
Yes, without objection, I think that this is what we would like to support.
Very good. Thank you. I believe Mr. Howard is up next with the Office of Inspector General.
Welcome, Mr. Howard. Hello, how are you, Inspector General Marcy? Good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, Mr. Howard.
Good morning again to everyone. And we have the Office of Inspector General FY22 operating budget is our next item. And of course, I'm joined by Ms. Lamarzi, the Inspector General, and also Ms. Bornett de Gomez is pinch hitting for Mr. Wida from Office of Management and Budget this morning. So the recommended budget for the OIG is $2,091,455 in FY22. Represents a 13.9% increase from the FY21 approved level, and that's primarily due to the addition of 2 FTEs, which we will talk about momentarily. The key items that increase the office's budget are $197,000 for the 2 FTE. There's an increase of about $37,000 related to the reclassification of 2 positions. The OIG had, for many years, had a pooled investigative analyst position, and they reclassified that to a manager 3 position to head the investigations and inspections division. And they also reclassified a manager 2 position to a manager 3 to head the audit division, determining that a position at a slightly lower level was the most appropriate for that moving forward. And then there's also some net increases from FY21 and 22 compensation adjustments and annualization of costs. The main discussion issue is really on the OIG staffing. And as the committee is, of course, aware, Bill 1119, which was adopted in October of 2019, expanded the Inspector General's duties by several-fold by requiring systemic risk-based rotating reviews of internal accounting and contracting processes for each department and principal office of the executive branch. And as part of that bill, the OIG developed a staffing scenario with a multi-year phase-in of staffing that would be needed to fully implement that bill. And we've attached the initial staffing scenario that was discussed by the committee and the council as part of those deliberations. And in total, the office estimated a need for 26 FTEs to fully implement the bill, which was an increase of 19 over their staffing level at the time, which was 7 FTEs. And then moving forward, the council did add 5 FTEs to the office in FY20. And then the executive recommended additional positions in FY21, but those were not able to be funded due to the continuity of services budget that year. And then the executive, of course, as I mentioned earlier, recommends an additional 2 positions in FY20 in the FY22 budget. And so on page 2 of the staff report, we have a comparison of what the total proposed FTEs under the phase-in plan originally was looking like compared to what the actual FTEs in the budget are, up through the 22 recommendation. So as recommended by the executive, the FY22 budget would have 14 FTEs, and so it would be approximately 9 positions below where the office hopes to be under the original staffing plan. And so I'll stop there to see if there are any questions or discussion on that issue.
Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the staff report and for making sure that the intentions of this committee and all the work that we've done to try to strengthen the Inspector General reflect in there, recognizing that we didn't anticipate the challenges that we were going to face and the moment that we were going to be in when we put forward that plan together. And thank you mostly to Ms. Lamarzi for you and your team and all the work that you've been doing. I think that we acted at a really important time to begin the work of strengthening your office and providing the resources needed given the moment that we're in, because with all of these new grant programs and unprecedented actions that we've been required to take, we need somebody looking after the store and making sure that we are following appropriate processes and instilling confidence in the public. And you have moved swiftly and addressed a number of issues, and it has been to make county government work better, to be more accountable to the residents that we serve with the money that we receive from those residents and from our federal and state partners. I really do appreciate it. There have been some terrific reports, and I'm proud of the work that this committee has done, and it's reflected in the work that you and your team are doing, and it demonstrates that we have really provided this core government function with appropriate resources to do such a critical job. With that, I wanted to ask you a question related to resources and the plan that we had put forward. Twofold. One, the moment that we're in, the unique additional requirements that come with it in terms of oversight, how you feel like that is going and how well you're equipped to handle it, and then also how well you're able to move forward with the progress on the regular review of county departments and agencies, not these special unique moments, but the regular functioning of county government, which was really one of the core aspects of the committee's work and intention to make sure that we're having that. I just wanted to check to see on that progress and where you thought things were based on the resources and staff complement that you currently have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Friedson, and good morning, Ms. Navarro, Mr. Katz. It's always nice to see you. I really appreciate the time I get to be in front of you and share with you the wonderful things that are being done by the women and men in our office. We are busy. I asked Mr. Howard to include a one-page snapshot for you in the staff report so you could see where we are at this stage of the game, just about 3/4 into this fiscal year. We have continued to review large pandemic response spending and programs and made recommendations to improve county government. And you'll see on there, we have initiated 23 engagements this fiscal year so far. 2 of those are audits required under Bill 1119. So as you are very aware, audits are very standardized, methodical, document intensive engagements. They require a great deal of detailed analysis. And we are fully staffed in our audit division right now. I have an amazing chief of the audit division and 3 incredible auditors who are diligently working to learn the county systems. And they do have 2 engagements ongoing. At this time, I would estimate an audit of a principal department of the county is going to take us about 10 months using 2 full-time staffers. So at the rate we're going with what I have right now, it could take us about 8 years to get through the principal departments as required by Bill 1119. The 2 staff people that have been included in the executive's recommended budget are fantastic in helping us to advance our goal of getting to all of the departments. One of those staff positions I am going to need to use for an IT auditor. IT is a high risk area for any organization, but because our statute requires us to follow government auditing standards, the Yellow Book risk analysis asks us to look at the risk and the control environment related to IT in each department we go to. So I really do need that expertise. I had been using a contractor, which is not very efficient. I burned through a good chunk of a contract on that person just getting up to speed with how the county operates. And we are a large organization. It's decentralized, so it's really challenging. So as the budget stands now, we'll bring, hopefully, if the council approves it, 1 position, 1 auditor and the IT auditor in at the very beginning of the fiscal year through HR. Hopefully I'll have them here at the start of the fall. And then the second position is starting in January, which means I really won't have that person on staff ready to go until late spring. So I don't anticipate a huge uptick off of what we're able to accomplish right now with the 2 audits. That is my goal, though. I am striving to continue to get that oversight. We will begin to balance larger departments with smaller departments. Right now, one of the audits we're doing is libraries. Libraries is one of the top 3 largest budgets in the county. So that's a huge undertaking, but we'll start to balance it in hopes that we can continue to provide you with the information that you sought by implementing 1119.
I appreciate it. I would love to add 9 positions to your office. I think all of us would. I recognize that we're not in a moment that allows that. I still want to make it very clear that the expectation, I think, for all of us is that we get you to your full staff complement when we can, as soon as we can, based on fiscal constraints. That won't be in FY23 as planned, but hopefully it can be as soon to that as possible. I know this committee will continue to push for that. For the current moment, I think it would be reasonable. I am concerned that the additional position is not going to start until January and then wouldn't really be on board until this time next year, most likely. And so if colleagues were amenable, I would suggest that we add to category 3 $61,362, which would allow you to bring that additional person on as soon as possible, because there is a lot of work to do, and we are in a serious moment. And I would hate for you to have to wait until January to start and then not be able to have somebody on board until this time next year. So I would suggest that. I think it's a reasonable way for us to keep our commitment towards your staff complement and hopefully work towards that full amount as we move forward.
Great.
All right, I think Councilmember, Mr. Howard.
Could you repeat the full amount to make sure I have that correctly?
Yeah, my understanding, and if you could confirm that this is the right number, but my understanding is $61,362, which would allow for the position that is currently effectively lapsed until January to begin on July 1st at the beginning of the fiscal year. And if that number is wrong, I hope that it will be adjusted as part of the recommendation.
Wonderful. We'll work to verify that number, and if it does change at all, I will let you know.
All right, so I believe that Councilmember Friedson did move. Councilmember Katz seconded, and I agree. So we will place that. I think it is absolutely really important, given a lot of the work ahead and given where we are with a lot of federal money coming through and a lot of different moving pieces. So I think this is very reasonable. It's the least that we can do. So I think that there's agreement there.
Thank you all very much.
No, thank you for extraordinary work. We are very fortunate to have you leading this particular organization at this time in particular. So really do want to express my gratitude for all the work and for your team's work there. All right, Mr. Howard, anything else?
The final action would be to that council staff recommends approval of the budget as submitted by the executive. Obviously, we have the addition to category 3 that you all just recommended. And then, as required by the county code, the council must recommend a projected budget for the next 3 fiscal years. Even though council can't appropriate funds for future years, it doesn't obligate anything, but it's kind of a projection of where you expect the office to be. Typically, what the committee and council has done is recommend the current funding projection over the next 3 years. And so that's what staff would recommend for this as well.
Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, could we, I mean, as part of that, is it possible to have a realistic adjustment to what the intended schedule was? I mean, we now recognize we're not going to add 9 positions this year, and we're not going to add 12 positions to catch up next year. I mean, I don't know that you could even keep up with that amount of new hires realistically, but I think it would be helpful if we kind of reset the expectations for what the staffing complement would be for the next 3 years and how we ultimately get to that full staffing complement of 20. Is that in 5 years from now? Is that in 4 years from now? I'm not sure, and I'm not sure the committee is capable of determining that on their own. I think the executive branch and Ms. Lamarzi and council staff, perhaps that could be worked out. But I would just suggest, rather than saying, here's what we think the funding will be available, and let's just put it in there, and then we have a large discrepancy between what we, had put forward as part of the bill and what we expect to do in the next few years. Say, okay, here's the intention that we clearly have. Here's the moment that has clearly changed it. And here's a new realistic timeline based on those various factors for how it would work, and then we can hold ourselves and the county executive and his recommended budget accountable to that new realistic schedule.
I agree. This is a very different situation than in the past. There were many years when the committee actually offered to increase the budget, almost had to force the office to receive the money. So that was a very different practice. But I think it's true. There's some dissonance here with what we agreed we were going to do with the bill, and then this sort of 3-year projection piece. So I do wonder if, Mr. Howard, if it's possible for you to work, some kind of a scenario that aligns with what we would like to see happen. I know that we can tweak things, but I think it is true that it would be important to acknowledge this moment, that it is a bit different. I mean, perhaps after everything is realized and appropriated, then it makes sense to kind of be consistent. But I think there is a disconnect here. Unfortunately, we don't have that language with us right now, or those numbers. Is it possible for you to work through that, and then maybe we can just circulate, so by the time we get to full council, maybe we can have agreement, and if not, we'll have to bring it back. But we can at least try that. Would that work?
We can certainly work on that. Another option I was just thinking of is that we could include language, because this is language that goes in the budget resolution, that the funding projection is the assumed baseline, and that there's an expectation that funding would be available to align with the position increases that are expected. Something along those lines. But we can work on both different options. If we can get more specific numbers, we can do that, depending on how that works, or we could come up with some sort of language that indicates the council's intent that we would proceed with increasing positions in the office going forward.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you can share those scenarios, then we can address that. Good observation, Councilmember Friedson. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you, and I'm in agreement with that as well. That was actually my concern, is when we would be able to actually have language that says what we intend. And obviously, this department is a department that we have all agreed on needed to be enhanced. And so if we could have something in there that gives that type of an indication, I think that makes sense. And to your point, Madam Chair, if we can circulate it and agree, then that's fine. If not, then we'll have to come back. But I'm fine with doing it that way. Thank you.
And Ms. Navarro, if I could for a second, the staffing proposal, the projection that was included with 1119 was when I was about 60 days on the job. If that, I might have only been 30 days. And so I'm very happy to take a look at that and talk with Mr. Howard and bring something back to you that is more sort of informed, if you will, based on the experience that we've had and what we've been able to assess so far, and what it would look like. Mr. Friedson's right. 12 people in 1 year would shut me down, half my office down, just to interview them all and bring them on. So I really am happy to come back and recognize that it is a different scenario. The world is different, the situation is different, and also, frankly, my experience and understanding has changed. Part of what I hope will be a new 4-year work plan, when I am reappointed in July, would include a budget projection for us. That's required under the statute. And so this could also be worked into that if it's not something that can be done in the next 30 days before the council has to pass the budget.
Makes sense. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, I appreciate that. In light of all this and the suggestion from Mr. Howard, I would be comfortable if we had the broader language that sets the expectation, and with the understanding that the July, there would be a robust plan. But I think that we can work through what the options are. I just want to clarify. I'm comfortable with either approach as appropriate. If you're not ready, to make an to have the detailed plan in July is the more appropriate timeline, which doesn't quite line up with the budget resolution, then as long as we have our intention, the intentions of the committee and we move ourselves back onto a parallel track, I think that would be appropriate, at least from my perspective. So let's pursue it and see where we come. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we will look forward to Mr. Howard and Ms. Marzi getting together, crafting something that we can react to, and then we'll share that with our colleagues at full council when it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marzi. All right. So with that, we are now going to turn over to our consent items. And as I said before, what we'll do is that, the item will be read in terms of what the recommendation is. And then if there are any questions, we can entertain those. If for some reason it's kind of a complicated issue, then we'll definitely bring that item back. So with that, let me turn it over to Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Ms. Navarro. So the first one, item 5A, is the future federal, state, and other grants non-departmental account. This is a non-tax supported appropriation of $20 million. And I'll just note all of these are executive recommendations that council staff concurs, and so council staff concurs with that.
All right. Without objection, we will accept that recommendation.
Very good. The next one is the grants to municipalities in lieu of shares tax. This is also a non-departmental account, and it's $20,020. And council staff recommends approval.
Okay, and there is a note that says that this item is unrelated to the municipal tax duplication issue and is an administrative item required by the state law. And for council staff, the state requires that the county pay the value of the shares tax to each municipality based on the fiscal year 1968 amount. So it says, yes, that's $28,020. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you, and thank you for the clarification. I know that we're going to be discussing, and you've sent a memo on it, we're going to be discussing other monies for the municipalities I guess it's the 30th. Gene, you probably remember the date more than I do. But anyhow, thank you for the clarification.
All right, without objection, we'll accept that.
Very good. The next one, 5C, is state property tax service non-departmental account. The recommendation is $3,565,615. Council staff concurs with the executive's recommendation.
All right, without objection, we will accept it.
Item 5D is the Tacoma Park Police rebate non-departmental account. This is calculated based off of a formula in the county code. Also slightly related to property tax duplication, since that was mentioned a second ago. The recommendation is $1,263,255.
Okay, without objection, we accept it.
The next item is Department of Finance 5E. The executive's recommendation is $100,944,411. This also includes the self-insurance fund, which is a bulk of the expenditures, and council staff recommends approval of the executive's recommendation.
All right, without objection, this is pretty straightforward. Yes, we approve.
Very good. And the last one for me is item 5F, which is the risk management non-departmental account. This is the county's general fund contribution for the self-insurance fund, and the recommendation is $23,260,695 for fiscal 22.
Objection? We approve.
Okay, the next two items are mine, and 5G is the Office of Human Resources. There's both the general fund component here as well as the group insurance self-insurance fund component. And council staff recommends approval as submitted by the executive, and also notes that as part of a suggested discussion for the fall overview sessions would include a discussion of OHR's strategic plan, as well as information on how the department is working on incorporating racial equity and social justice principles into its various elements.
Excellent. Without objection, we approve.
And the next one is a much smaller budget, the Office of Labor Relations, as well as the Labor Management Relations Committee NDA. And council staff is recommending approval as submitted by the executive. Both of these are nearly level funded. There's just a small increase for compensation adjustments in the Office of Labor Relations.
Great. Without objection, we approve.
Good morning. So the next item is item 5I, the Board of Elections. Council staff recommends approval of the FY22 Board of Elections budget as submitted by the county executive. I will note that council staff also recommends a review in either the summer or the fall of two pretty important items. The first is the structural underfunding of the State Board of Elections with regards to, the Montgomery County Board of Elections due to State Board of Election charges. So each year the State Board charges Montgomery County for its share of elections related expenses and how they administer that in the county. So traditionally the county executive has recommended an amount that does not fully cover the amount of state charges. Then the process to allow the county to pay the gap between those charges is either through a supplemental appropriation or OMB and finance doing some sort a year-end transfer that will allow the Board of Elections to cover the full amount that the county is charged by the state. So there has been a mismatch for a number of years. So I think the committee should speak with the county executive and the Board of Elections to see how we can address that going forward. The second issue is new state mandated costs as a result of the FY21 legislative session that just ended a week or two ago. So there are a number of bills that were passed in the General Assembly, and it is part of your packet. I'll just read the three. So the first is House Bill 206, which dictates the hours of operation for early voting centers. So the length of time that early voting centers will be open will be expanded from 10 a.m. to 8 p. From 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. That is what it is currently, to now 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So an additional 2 hours of early voting. The second is House Bill 745, which now increases the amount of early voting centers that jurisdictions will have to maintain during an election. And this will likely cause Montgomery County to have to open an additional 2 early voting centers, which will incur more costs. And then the third is Senate Bill 683, which creates a permanent absentee ballot list. So if a registered voter wants to be put on a permanent absentee ballot list, the Board of Elections will have to send an absentee ballot for every election with return postage. This will create new costs. And yeah, those are the two main issues that I think should be revisited. But council staff recommends approving the county executive's budget as is, because the Board of Elections kind of falls outside of the council's current priorities of addressing COVID-19 related issues or direct fiscal policy issues.
Thank you so much for that. I do agree with you. I think that we will absolutely schedule, which we always do right after, things like this, particular changes have happened at the state level, but also because, next year in June, there will be an election, and we need to meet with folks to understand how all this will, what these changes, the meaning, impact, et cetera. And so absolutely, we'll go ahead and work with you to schedule that in the summer afterwards. Really do appreciate bringing up these issues, flagging those for us as well, because there were a lot of good work happened at the state level. Now we have to turn around and figure out how we're going to implement all of them and how we're going to fund them. So it's important to address that and be ready for those. Okay, without objection, colleagues, we will accept the recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Camacho.
Thank you.
All right, and the next item is yours too.
Yes. So item 5J is the Merit System Protection Board. Council staff again recommends approval of the FY22 Merit System Protection Board budget as submitted by the county executive. Changes from the FY21 approved budget are around $8,543 in terms of personnel costs, but none of the changes will have a service impact.
Excellent. Without objection, we approve.
Is the next one mine as well?
I believe so. Ethics Commission, I think it has your name on it.
Ethics Commission, yes. Okay. Council staff recommends approval of the FY22 Ethics Commission budget as well. Changes from the FY21 budget include $600 or $7,000 in compensation adjustments, as well as retirement adjustment, and a small decrease in a printing and mail adjustment. But again, no service impacts are expected in this in the county executive's recommended budget.
All right, without objection, we will accept the recommendation of $371,629. Okay,
Great.
next one, item.
Yes, that is mine as well. The Office of Management and Budget. So council staff recommends approval of the Office of Management and Budget FY22 budget. The FY22 recommended budget is $37,000 above the FY21 approved budget. Changes from the FY21 budget include, again, compensation and benefit adjustments, an increase for print and mail. Decreases include a lapse in funding, which will delay the hiring of positions, but will not be expected to impact services or operations in FY22. The FY22 budget also eliminates one-time operating expenses from the FY21 budget associated with the merger of the performance analysis team, or county stat, and the creation of the shared services team. So with regards to the lapsed funding, a fall overview session should address some of the staffing levels at OMB. But again, these changes are not expected to have a service impact.
All right, great. Without objection, we will accept the $6,418,437 for OMB. Okay.
Great. And then item 5N is 3 non-departmental accounts. So the first is the boards, committees, and commissions. Then we have county associations, Metro Washington Council of Governments, and then Public Technology Inc. So I'm sorry, 4 non-departmental accounts. So council staff recommends approval of all 4 as recommended by the county executive. I will note that there are 2 changes. So for the budget for boards, committees, and commissions, there's a shift of $16,000 from the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice to the BCC, Boards, Committees, and Commissions, NDA, for stipends for the 8 public members of the Racial Equity and Social Justice Advisory Committee. There's also an increase of $8,800 for stipends and reimbursements, as 2 additional public members were added to the Racial Equity and Social Justice Advisory Committee via Bill 4420. So those are the 2 main adjustments for BCCs. And then for the Public Technology Inc., there's a decrease of $15,000 for the county's annual membership. So those are the only 2 changes in those 4 NDAs.
Great. Thank you for pointing that out regarding the stipend for the public members of the Racial Equity and Social Justice Committee. That's an important component of our work. Okay, so without objection, we accept the county executive recommendation of $1,811,997. Thank you very much, Mr. Camacho.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mia.
Good morning, committee members. I will give Mr. Camacho a little break before the last item. Before you is the item 5.0 is the Department of General Services. No major issues. The general fund appropriation for 22 has increased over a little over $1 million. A little more than half of that is related to operating expenses related to the opening of new facilities, namely Great Courthouse and Avery Road Treatment Center in FY22. You have janitorial costs, maintenance costs, as well as some groundskeeping, landscaping costs. The remainder of the increase is related primarily to FY21-22 compensation adjustments, as well as increased costs for existing contracts. With respect to the print and mail fund, cost increases are primarily due to the FY21-22 compensation adjustments. Beyond that, staff recommends approval as recommended by the county executive.
All right. I see Mr. Dice, but I believe that first I'll ask if there are any objections to this item. Seeing none, I think we approve unless Mr. Dice has anything else to add. He's giving us a thumbs up, so we approve. Thank you, Mr. Mia. All right.
All right. And then the
And our
last item is item 5P, Office of the County Attorney. Council staff recommends approval of the FY22 Office of the County Attorney budget. The FY22 recommended budget is 1.1% above the FY21 approved budget and adds 0.5 FTEs. So that's where the main change comes from. So the OCA's budget increases by personnel budget increases by around $83,000 as a deputy privacy official is shifted from the Department of Health and Human Services to OCA. So this position was previously split between HHS and the Office of the County Executive, but reported to OCA. The County Executive is now recommending reassigning this function to OCA, given that this role supports departments across county government, which more aligns with the mission of OCA, which is to provide legal services to county departments. So that's the main change. There's also a lapse of an administrative aid position and an administrative specialist position, but OCA does not expect these two lapsed positions to have a service impact.
All right. Without objection, colleagues, we accept this item. And thank you so much, Mr. Camacho. As we're wrapping up, I do want to remind everyone that although these are consent items and we're moving, quickly through them, the council will, after the recess, the summer recess, devote some time to go in depth into different policy areas or different outstanding issues that the analysts have identified. But obviously, these are very straightforward items that do not have significant changes from last year's budget, and it aligns with our priorities of focus during this particular budget, which is really COVID-19 emergency responses, as well as major fiscal impacts. And so, and of course, making sure that we're addressing the issues of the most vulnerable. But we will come back to particular issues that we identify along the way. So with that, colleagues, thank you so much. I believe that we have just finished our marathon session for our first GEO. We will have others, but this is our first one. So thank you very much to all the analysts for helping us out.
Thank you.
Now we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.